Hi. How are you today? Welcome to my kitchen. I'm Susan Buchser-Lochocki, and I'm going to read you another children's book. Actually, it's a continuation of the one we already started. It's called If You Were There When They Signed the Constitution. This is part 3. And it is by Elizabeth Levy and illustrated by Joan Holub. It's from the Scholastic Book Company. So, let me find where we left off. Shays' Rebellion. Ready? Did Shays' Rebellion lead to the writing of the Constitution? Historians have argued for years about exactly how and why we came to write the Constitution. Were the writers scared that the revolution had brought too much liberty? Or did they want to make sure that the revolution lasted? Certainly, Shays' Rebellion shook up many people. But there were many other reasons why people wanted a new constitution. George Washington and other leaders of the rebellion wanted to see a stronger, united nation. They wanted this nation to have only one money system. They wanted a nation that could trade with other governments. They felt we needed to be one nation to make treaties with Europe. We needed an army and a navy if we had to go to war again. They were looking for any excuse to try to bring the states together to write a new constitution. So there's no pictures yet, just words, but I think you can see them all. How did the 13 states finally agree to meet in Philadelphia? James Madison had the bright idea to use a quarrel between two states as an excuse to bring all the states together. Virginia and Maryland started fighting over whose ships could go up and down the Potomac, the river that was the boundary for both states. Madison called for a convention at Annapolis, Maryland, in September 1786 to discuss the problem of trade between all the states. Only 5 of the 13 states sent delegates. A delegate is someone chosen to speak and act for a group. With so few delegates, very little could be done. But Alexander Hamilton came to Annapolis from New York. He and James Madison decided not to give up. They called for another conference to be held in Philadelphia on the second Monday of May, 1787. It was at this convention in Philadelphia that our Constitution was written. Of course, at that time, no one called it the Constitutional Convention. They didn't know they were going to write a constitution. They called it the Grand Convention or the Federal Convention. So here we have some pictures. Just a little. The ships battling on the Potomac. In Washington, D.C. before it became Washington, D.C. What happened when the convention opened? Almost nothing. It had been the rainiest spring in history. All the roads were mud. Hardly anyone showed up on time. On opening day, only a few Virginians and the men who lived in Philadelphia were there. Poor James Madison, who had come 11 days earlier, was practically alone. For a while, it looked as though there would never be a convention. George Washington arrived on Sunday, May 13th, 1787, the day before the convention was to begin. The sun came out for the first time in weeks. Washington was met by a number of his old troops, all in uniform and shiny black boots. The people stood on the cobblestone streets and cheered and cheered. As soon as Washington arrived, he called on the only other man in America as famous as he, Dr. Benjamin Franklin. We do not know what Washington and Franklin talked about. They might have met under a mulberry tree in Franklin's garden, a favorite place for him to sit. We do know that Franklin laid in a good bottle of port for them to drink. So it was a casual meeting. Here we have some more pictures. I'll read one more page and then that should do for this part 3. Where did the delegates stay? Many delegates stayed at the Indian Queen, an inn very close to the Senate House, where they would be meeting. A young black servant with powdered hair and a red cape met them at the door. So many delegates stayed at the Indian Queen that the landlord set aside a special dining room for them. George Washington stayed at the home of his good friend Robert Morris, who was also a delegate to the convention. Morris had helped get the money to fight the Revolution. Morris would end up in jail for his debts, but in 1787, he was one of the richest men in Philadelphia. Some more pictures. Okay, so I think that ends it for today. We're at 8 minutes now. Thanks for stopping by. It was a pleasure to read to you, and I hope you enjoyed this. So tomorrow is part 4 of If You Were There When They Signed the Constitution. All right, take care. Have a good day. Bye.